And we'll finally dig into one last story here. Speaking of soullessness, we're going to look at Balenciaga one last time because there's been quite an interesting uproar. Now, when I first spoke about this story last week, and you guys can go back and check out the episode that's in the description of this podcast to see that, I didn't know about the story that I'm going to share with you guys today, but I did make mention of the fact that one thing we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Balenciaga is playing innocent. They knew exactly what was being approved, and they are at least not ignorant of what took place because they did have to approve every single one of these photos and every single one of these posts before they ever went out. That's how these organizations work. The extent to which they knew what was in them is still debatable. We may never know, but we know for a fact that they saw the BDSM teddy bears and the children holding them. So there's certainly no innocence for Balenciaga here in the story. And this is important because what has happened as a result of the outrage from this Balenciaga story is that both sides of the aisle, seemingly very liberal people to also very conservative people, seem to be able to unanimously agree about the disgusting nature of what Balenciaga has been doing. So this is interesting to me. Anytime we can get over the polarization that's so common today and actually agree upon something across the aisle. And that seems to have happened with this Balenciaga story. So people are outraged across the board. Now, if you weren't outraged enough by the pictures of these small children, 3 and 4 years old, maybe holding BDSM teddy bears with bondage gear on, and the release of photos where in the background of those photos there's court documents from people who were trying to legalize child pornography. If all of that didn't convince you that there is a group of disgusting individuals that exist in Hollywood and beyond and operate in corporate spaces like Balenciaga, maybe this will do it for you, because my friend Seth Gruber just recently posted this and has been kind of showing this around social media, and I think it's worth your attention. So as you can see in the picture that's on the screen, we have another picture of a young child that's posing with Balenciaga gear, and on the floor you can see some caution tape, yellow tape that says Balenciaga on it, but only it's spelled differently. It's spelled B-A-A-L for Baal, and then E-N-C-I-A-G-A. Now, the reason this is important is you might think that this is a typo, but again, Balenciaga has a keen eye for these kind of things, and this was absolutely intentional, because what you see on that caution tape is a reference to a false god in the Old Testament. So more and more people are seeing things like this and what Balenciaga is up to and getting rid of all their Balenciaga stuff. Now, I'm glad of that, because what that means is that we no longer can claim to be naive about what's going on in the world. There is a group of sick people who want to send messages to your kids and, frankly, to you, that things like Baal is king and child pornography is acceptable. This is what Balenciaga has been doing for far, far too long unchecked. And people are waking up to it. And all over social media, we see people throwing away all of their Balenciaga stuff as if they ever should have bought it in the first place. But here's what I want to caution us all towards. If we can no longer be naive, we realize that these issues are happening right under our nose, then we need to not just boycott, throw things away, or not purchase things from Balenciaga ever again. We need to also be interested in boycotts. And by that I mean simply this, that we need to be interested in supporting the businesses that are actually standing on good values. If we can no longer be naive about the existence of these kind of things out there in the ether, then we need to be smart with our money and use it where it is best suited. By placing it into things not like Disney and not like Balenciaga, not places that are trying to over-sexualize our children. And by the way, not even in public school system. You need to invest your money in your kids in other ways, with private schools and with other organizations that are not left-leaning libtards. And for that reason, I'm kind of almost glad that we can no longer trust our institutions. And I'm talking about social media, I'm talking about our political class, and places like Balenciaga. It forces us to think for ourselves. It forces us to realize our limitations and to look at alternate sources of information. It forces us in the position of humility, as I said at the beginning of the show. I may not be able to convince you that the place for that is God and His Word, but I can tell you that it is. That is why I don't shy away from Christian arguments on this show. When other conservative outlets say, well, you don't have to bring up the Bible for this. Well, I think eventually we do. I think eventually we do have to bring God in the conversation, and we have to give people alternatives, because if we're not, we're just merely fighting against something but never standing for something. So how long will we continue to see evil and avoid the prescription to overcome that evil? While we avoid God and His Word, we're throwing away expensive Balenciaga stuff and failing to be outraged over the fact that no one other than Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, have gone down for this high-end pedophile ring that abused small children. Who knows how many? All I'm suggesting is that if we can't find outrage for that, it could be that we have selective outrage because we have no real standard by which to judge the world anymore. Far be it from me to suggest anything other than that outrage is good. Bring it on. The more, the merrier, especially where it is needed. But as much as we wake up to the realization of evil around us, we must wake up to the realization of a solution. We must wake up to the realization of the good. And as long as we throw Balenciaga away, but not the evil in our own heart, we'll continue to create a world where our kids are less safe, and less safe than when we were kids. And I, for one, don't want that for my kids. So while you're throwing away your nasty Balenciaga stuff, think about where you're going to church this Sunday as well. So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely need to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.